I'd say that like the startup industry though isn't necessarily strange to me though, because I feel like actors and like entertainment industries do that all the time. So it's kind of like it's like a complete like I completely get where your point is, and I also agree that you probably shouldn't go to a startup just because the idea of like how actors work, right? It's like they take on a project. That project may take 5 years to maybe even get to like the theaters, and in between it could be like shut down, or it might not even, it might completely change and you don't necessarily agree with the story anymore, but because you signed up for the project.
Like I can be a successful actress but not a beginning actress. You know, like when you first start off,
you can't even be a successful actress until you start off as an actress, so that makes no sense to me.
I know.
Like everyone would love to be a successful like something, you know, like the easier life.
Only I was born to people who are like lords and countesses in England.
Oh no, you need. I don't think that works in Western world, but it might work in Bollywood. Like if you had like strong family ties.
No, Caro, that's where she comes from. Her parents are like, she comes from Viscounts.
Delavigne?
Yeah.
Oh, no, but she actually started off as a model. She wasn't even really, she's still not fully embraced.
That's because her parents are also models.
Yeah, but that's because...
And then their family overall has been like from a royal family.
I know, but it's just like, so, at the same time...
So like, oh, so not to say anything.
At the same time, in the end, her contribution to humanity is like minimal. I know you don't care, but it's like...
Hi everyone, it's Stephanie.
Hi, it's Emily.
And today we're going to talk about Startup by Dory Schaffer, which is a book of the month pick that Emily picked a few months ago. So Yay! Let's get started about this book.
Sure. So the story premise basically revolves around the startup culture in contemporary times. So it's a duet. It's a debut novel by the author, and she used to actually be a BuzzFeed editor, and she did a lot in terms of tech. So the story revolves around, I think, around 3 or 4 main characters, all from different spheres of the tech world. So there's a founder who is basically a advocate for his company of, I think, wellness. It's basically revolves like him trying to build this app that monitors how employees sort of behave day to day, and then his, I think, eventual, like one of his underlings who he ends up having a sexual relationship with, but not necessarily I guess a meaningful one. And then her name's Isabel. So Isabel somehow happens to know and work alongside this mother and who is a social guru too, whose husband is an editor for a tech newspaper, who then also has an underling who works for him, and there's like a whole bunch of messes of like relationships all around them. So if you're getting confused by what I'm saying, you can understand.
Be confused because we're confused.
Yeah. Like I think 3 main settings.
Yeah.
One is the headquarters of the wellness app place.
Right.
Then there is the newspaper, tech newspaper, and then there's like, I think their homes, like whoever has like their apartments.
Yeah. So what did you think about this book after reading it?
I remember, because I kind of like touched a little bit of like the startup world in the very beginning of my career. Not really my career, but like when I was coming out of school, I worked for a few startups. So I feel like the environment that she kind of like drew out was actually pretty familiar to me. Okay. The idea of like things really being a hustle, needing things like right away, having iterations of almost anything, including personalities, needing to really make nothing out of, making something out of nothing. I feel like that was very much like the motto of the entire book in terms of like this, and also of like most of the startup world, especially in the beginning, where you have to really please everyone. Not only like do you have to be there for yourself, but like you're also like, oh, I have my stakeholders I have to like answer Series A stuff for, and then I have my employees that like have their own needs and wants and everything. And so I feel like the struggles of like being an entrepreneur, as well as being a person, is very much embodied in this book. But I think the one thing that I really took away from this book was working under a male founder can be very complicated in terms of like woman empowerment, etc., just because the book eventually touches onto that topic. How like things, once like certain relationships among employees get very blurred, how that could really end up derailing your initial ambitions.
Right.
And, like having to completely change gear, or even severing that relationship altogether.
And so like touching back into the whole, starting a new company, you're really forced to kind of be the best of yourself at all times, because life is work and work is life for you.
Yeah, there's no clear.
There's no clear boundaries, and I think the fault of what's his name, Mark?
Yeah,
was his name Mark?
Let me tell you.
Like the founder guy for
Mac.
I think on his part, the reason why things started to go down was because he decided to start a relationship with a girl in his office.
Yeah, but that's actually a very common occurrence in startups.
I know. But the thing is, like, so he is the founder. So, like, if things start rolling downhill from there, it's very easy for him to get the brunt of it. Like, it's one thing if you're, people that's not other than the founder guy is sleeping around with each other. That's one thing, because, like, end of the day, it's like, you're still kind of all within the same level. But this is a guy who's clearly the president of the company. And if he starts sleeping with people who's working for him, then lots of things can occur, lots of like, drama and clearly and not like, and a lot of things can be at stake there, not only just yourself and your reputation, but also your company. It's stuff that you have literally bled your sweat and your blood for it. So it's like, are you really willing to do that? And the fact that he did that, I was kind of like, well, things are gonna go bad from here. I found very interesting actually in this book was how much they're on Twitter and Instagram. Like, I know Twitter and Instagram is really like, a huge part of social media these days, but their job, like literally Sabrina's job, like the mother, and the person who also works for Mac, literally just sits there on her tweet deck every day and is just tweeting. Like, that is her job. And I'm just like, what? Like, I just like, that just doesn't, like, for me, it's like social media is like all social media. Like, there's not one person who just does Twitter.
But going back to your analysis about Mac though, I felt like it was really interesting to see him basically mess up because he had to like grow in the book. And I felt like he's kind of the stereotype. I don't necessarily think that the author did badly in describing the type of like guy founder stereotype.
And then the fact that he was always like, okay, I need to take a picture right here, and walk like, oh my god, I have like 400 likes already. Oh my god. And the fact that he like counts how many girls that he's slept with, and he's like, well, that makes her 293, and I'm like,
he's such a bro.
I'm like, that is like the most disgusting thing I've ever heard. Like, I'm sorry.
He's definitely a bro.
Like, another thing that I'm really curious about is like the whole wellness app. I think that's the stupidest idea ever.
No, but like, things like that work, and that's exactly what's hilarious about this book is because so far, in terms of like how Silicon Valley views things, and then how like the real world sees things, there's such a bridge right now. Like, there's such not a bridge, such a gap in between. There's such a rift in between these two, because like there was like articles going out all the time about how like there's these really bright people from Harvard, from MIT, and well, maybe not MIT, but from really bright like Ivy League-esque schools who end up working for startups that really don't make that much more of an impact in the world. And like there's such a brain drain on like actual industries that really need help. Like maybe let's just take for like car industry, right? Or like in medical fields, right? So there's only people who are going to like investment banking and I guess like computer science and all these things, only to work for wellness apps or like Uber. No offense to Uber, but like for these apps that are consumer oriented but don't really do much to like prolong our lives really or help us later on, etc. So I felt like that in general the book did really well in sort of building up that hysteria of like, how can this get funded? Like, are there like VCs crazy?
About Mac, let's talk about Katya, who's like the tech journalist, who's the one who kind of blew this story apart basically, and the underling of the other guy who's the husband of Sabrina. It's very jumbled.
How will you start?
So for Katya, I feel like her so she's also kind of the same thing with Sabrina, where she's literally on Twitter all the time. But it was interesting to kind of see how the journalists of these days basically just take stories from Twitter and revamp it and rewrite it for their own. I was just like, that is so not journalism, because journalism is about finding your own work, right? Like, you don't talk about other people's like works and then basically republish it yourself. Like, I don't know.
I think the biggest thing about being a journalist is finding a lead. And today's
leads are all on Twitter.
I guess are all on Twitter.
And usually they're like already written articles. Because that's basically what happened with Kaya. Like her company that she worked for, they were kind of like, okay, we're gonna have to see how much of an impact your stories really go. So basically, if you're gonna use someone else's article, it's not gonna have much impact because their article came first, you know. So it kind of forced them to write new things. And for Kaya, that was really difficult, and she ended up using this because she didn't have any other leads.
Yeah, I mean, again though, like I think it has a lot to do with the fact that the author herself was a journalist, though. So I feel like that side of the story was really well hashed out. Yeah, I thought like that was my favorite part of the book, actually.
Kaya?
Yeah, Kaya, because like that part like was very like fresh to me. Even though like I kind of knew like the overall like stratosphere of how like that kind of worked. In general, Mac always came off a little bit too much of like an archetype. Yeah. While like Kayak actually was a lot more of like a character for me.
Okay.
But in terms of answering to your point, I felt like journalism these days is just such a tough profession to be in, just because not only are you're like, they're always counting based on like, because we're in marketing, right? So we're always counting, we're like their arch nemesis. We're always counting impressions, clicks, and then like conversions, right? And none of that really answers to integrity, you know, which is basically the whole point of journalism. And journalism requires actually quite extensive research. So like an actual good piece, if anyone's ever actually watched the movie Spotlight, it takes a good like a week or two for you to really have a compiled, comprehensive like narrative essay to really give someone to read.
Because like the society is all about like now, they have to give off like half-assed articles.
Yeah, and especially for people who are just starting out as journalists, that's a terrible habit to have, because then you have no sense of originality. You actually also have no like real compass to go by in terms of like, is this worth writing about?
Right. And also with like social media these days, because everything is like someone will witness it and they'll be posting it already, and you're just like, wait, but that was my story, you know, or something like that, or that's basically like all the information has been leaked out already by social media, like people like bystanders or other journalists, etc. So by the time it gets to you, you're kind of like, okay, well, I can rewrite this piece or I could just move on.
Yeah,
you know, so I feel like that's just
become very much like a factor.
Right. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I like that side of the story, just because I feel like it was mostly about her, to be honest. Right, like it was mostly about her, and and everyone just kind of like circled around her, because Mac was the person that she was writing about, and then Isabel is obviously the person who comes to her later. Sabrina is her, is like the wife of her like boss, basically, and that relationship too was kind of awkward for me. I was like, I don't know how I feel about this, but it just shows you like what kind of world we live in today. Especially in the startup industry. So I don't know. I work for a startup because I don't like that kind of I don't like that sense of not being stable, like instability. Because one, you can just, if you feel like you're not doing so well the past few days or a few weeks or whatever, for whatever reason, personal reasons, etc., and your employer can just be like, well, sir, your numbers have been down, so gotta go. Or for example, you know, like the money coming in, because startups really rely on the investors, the venture capitalists, different people to really just pour money to them. And if for some reason they decide, never mind, I think your product doesn't work so well anymore, or we feel like it doesn't really align with our beliefs, or they want to have more of a play in the company itself, and the founder is like, no, I want to be the solo person responsible for everything, then you're out of money and you're out of luck, and you're gonna have to find a job. You know, so I feel like it's very unstable because of that. And I personally feel like I would never do that. But kudos to people who do. Like people who like to, you know, like those are people who like live on the edge. Like I have friends who actually do their own startups, and I don't know what they do for their startup, but they're very heavily in the startup world and like as founders and stuff.
Okay.
And I feel like they're always like living on the go because they can't really like settle down. And I feel like that really defines what startups are.
I think it takes a certain personality. I didn't necessarily say, but the thing is, what you also need to understand about this book and the prevalence, sort of the startup environment nowadays, and I guess the acclaim that it gets in the media, is that it's only one facet of how people work. You know, like there's no real shame in saying that you don't really want to be part of that world either. Because I feel like, I understand like you don't have that dilemma, but I feel like there's a lot of people who kind of like in the beginning, at least in school for me, were kind of like, I either go to a bank or I go work for a startup, or there's like nothing. There's like nothing left, you know, like I'm not ambitious enough, or like there's something wrong with me, etc. And I feel like a lot of the people who go into startups, and this book definitely does that, does a good job of it, is that they're actually quite clueless about what they really want. And in that sense, like you're very much prey to people who are more experienced than you. Not saying that like VCs are definitely like that, but like you definitely are more prey to initiating and validating people's like contributions based on pure numbers, because of the fact that there's no other benchmark to really go by, and you don't necessarily, you have like kind of an imposter syndrome going on, so you also feel like there's nothing more to work with other than, okay, so you don't have these particular rates about you, all right, well then you're done. I could recommend this book to anyone who wanted a slight glimpse or recommendation if you actually want to be part of the startup world. I feel like this would be a good primer. But yeah, I think generally it was a decent educational read. But I would say it's one of those books I would limit to certain types of people. Recommendations.
Same. But yeah, that's it for today for our very long and lengthy review of Startup. If you like the video, please subscribe and like it, and also follow us on Twitter and and Facebook. We don't have Instagram yet. But yeah, that's it for today.
All right, thanks you guys.
Bye.